welcome to our deep dive. We're going to be talking about decolonization.
Yeah.
You know, when I first heard that word, I thought it was all about, like, history books, right? Empires. But the more I've been, looking into this stuff, the more I'm realizing it's actually about the way we work today, even the way we see the world.
Yeah. It's really fascinating, this whole concept of decolonization. It's kind of having a resurgence.
It is.
And not just in, academic circles.
Yeah.
People are starting to realize how important it is for so many different things.
Absolutely.
Even global politics.
So to help us unpack this, we've been really diving into the work of George Simons,
Oh, yeah.
a true expert in intercultural communication.
He's great.
He's got some really incredible insights into what decolonization really means and how it actually shows up in our lives.
His work is, it's particularly compelling because he doesn't shy away from how complex it is.
Right.
He really recognizes that decolonization is not just this, quick fix.
Oh, absolutely not.
A one-time event is like an ongoing process
Yeah.
of examining and dismantling these patterns we have.
So true. So let's start with the basics. How does George Simons define decolonization?
Okay.
Because I have a feeling it goes way beyond what I learned in, high school history class.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Simons defines it as the withdrawal of foreign control.
Okay.
So that includes military, financial, political control. And then that leads to local people getting their ownership and autonomy back.
Got it.
But he really emphasizes that it's not just about the physical control.
So there's more to it than just like countries gaining independence.
Yeah.
Or territories being returned.
Exactly. It's about really getting rid of those effects of colonialism on people's minds.
Yeah.
And even the systems, that kind of govern our lives.
Oh, wow.
He calls this the colonial mentality.
Okay.
And it can stick around even after all the physical structures of colonialism are gone.
Okay. Now, this is where it gets really interesting for me. What exactly is this colonial mentality?
Right.
And how does it still have an impact on us today?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not living under colonial rule anymore.
Right. But the legacy of colonialism is kind of woven into everything. It's in our societies, our institutions.
Wow.
And the colonial mentality, it shows up, as this belief that certain cultures or values, even ways of knowing things, are better than others.
So it's like this invisible hierarchy.
Yeah.
That still says some groups are better.
Precisely. And it has an effect in subtle ways.
Mhm.
It impacts education, healthcare, business practices, even international relations.
Can you give me an example of how this colonial mentality shows up?
Sure.
Like in a workplace?
Absolutely. Think about those international development projects,
Right.
where organizations from the West, they go to developing countries
Yeah.
with these ideas of what those communities need.
Right. So they have good intentions.
Right, but they might be imposing their own values and solutions.
Without even realizing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that can really undermine, the local people,
Wow.
their knowledge, their ability to make their own decisions.
Yeah.
So Simons argues that true decolonization requires a total shift in mindset.
Okay.
Like, we have to recognize that all cultures are valuable and that solutions need to be developed together, respecting those local contexts.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not about like getting rid of differences. It's about valuing those differences.
Yeah.
And making systems where everyone can participate.
You got it. And this is where Simons' work connects to another interesting concept, unlabeling.
Unlabeling.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Well, you see, labels are really powerful. They can be used to categorize people, define them, even control them. And a lot of times those labels are rooted in this colonial thinking,
Oh, okay.
reinforcing those hierarchies and stereotypes.
So you're saying that even labels that seem harmless can be a problem.
Think about it. When we label someone as developed or developing, Western or Eastern, we're kind of putting them in a box.
Yeah.
We're judging them based on ideas we have.
And those ideas might be based on these outdated colonial ideas
Exactly.
that don't really reflect what these cultures are really like.
Precisely. Unlabeling is about rejecting those imposed identities and categories.
Okay.
It's about saying every individual has worth and dignity
Yeah.
and allowing people to define themselves.
That sounds really empowering. But how does that work? Unlabeling. I mean, we use labels all the time.
It's a process.
Okay.
It's about being aware and thinking critically.
Yeah.
So questioning the labels we use, the assumptions behind them, and the impact they have on ourselves, but also on other people.
Okay.
It's about actively seeking out different perspectives,
Okay.
challenging stereotypes, creating spaces where people feel safe to be themselves.
So it's a process of questioning and learning, but also unlearning.
Absolutely. And this is where decolonization and unlabeling really connect.
Okay.
They're both about taking apart those power structures
Right.
that limit us.
Hmm.
They're both about making a world that's more fair and just, where everyone has a chance to succeed.
This is giving me so much to think about, but before we go too far, I want to go back to George Simons for a second. I know he's got a new book
Oh, yeah.
called Diversity.
Yeah, Diversity.
And I'm really curious to hear more about it.
It's a great project, really brilliant.
Okay.
It's not just a book, it's also a card game.
Oh, wow.
It helps people explore these complex issues of culture, identity, decolonization, but in a way that's fun.
A card game. That's so cool. How does that work?
Well, it's all about storytelling.
Mhm.
The cards, they'll prompt players to share their own experiences, listen to others, and really challenge what they think.
Hmm.
It's powerful. It helps people develop empathy, understand each other better, and talk about their differences.
That's so valuable, especially today. I mean, we're always interacting with people from different backgrounds.
Exactly. And it's a great way to make these concepts, decolonization and unlabeling, accessible to everyone.
So we've just scratched the surface here. I'm ready to go deeper into how decolonization works in real life.
Me too. We have so much more to talk about: the challenges, the opportunities, the specific steps people and organizations can take.
I can't wait. But for now, let's take a quick break. We'll continue our deep dive into decolonization after this. Explore how it can transform, our workplaces, our relationships, and our understanding of the world. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive.
We've been talking about some pretty deep stuff with George Simons.
Yeah.
Especially this whole colonial mentality thing.
It really is amazing how these, power dynamics from history still kind of stick with us.
Yeah, even if we don't always see them.
Exactly.
So let's say I'm working in an organization,
Okay.
maybe a global company or something, and I want to actually start using these decolonization ideas.
Yeah.
Where do I even begin?
Simons really emphasizes that awareness is the first step.
Okay.
It's about really paying attention to those moments when that colonial mentality is kind of creeping in.
Like you have to notice it first
You do.
before you can even change it, right?
Right, exactly.
It's almost like you're developing this new sense.
Yeah.
You're starting to see things you didn't before.
Exactly. And it's like, for example, maybe there's this tendency to always go back to like Western leadership models or communication styles, those kinds of things.
So maybe not even realizing that other ways of doing things exist.
Right. And maybe certain people's voices aren't being heard.
Like in meetings and stuff?
Yeah, in meetings, exactly.
So if you don't actually see the problem, you can't really fix it.
Exactly.
But once you do start to recognize those patterns, you can start to ask some questions.
You can.
Like why are we doing it this way?
Yeah, is this really the best way? Or are we just stuck in these old ways of doing things that maybe aren't fair?
That's such a powerful question.
It is.
But it's also, it takes some guts to actually challenge things, especially if you're not the one in charge.
That's true. And that's why the leaders have to set a good example.
Okay.
If they're the ones questioning things and encouraging that open discussion, it makes everyone else feel like they can too.
So it's like you're creating this space where it's safe to challenge the way things are.
Right, exactly.
Even if those ways have been in place for a long time.
And it's about building this culture of curiosity, humility, respect, where everybody's voice matters.
That sounds pretty ideal.
It does.
But I imagine there are some pretty big challenges.
There are.
In actually doing this decolonization work. What are some of the roadblocks?
I think one of the biggest ones is just that people resist change.
They do.
They get used to the way things are.
Right, even if it's not really fair for everyone.
Exactly. And for some people, it can feel like a threat.
Like if they're the ones who benefit from the way things are now.
Right. And then there's also the challenge of those biases we don't even realize we have.
Like we don't even know we're doing it.
Yeah. And that's hard to fix because people aren't aware of it.
So how do you get past that resistance?
Communication is key.
Okay.
It's about explaining decolonization as a positive thing, not like a punishment or an attack.
So instead of saying you're doing it wrong, it's more like, hey, maybe there's a better way.
Exactly. Help people see the benefits of it for everyone.
And those benefits would be what? Like more innovation?
Yeah.
Better decisions? happier employees.
All of that, when everyone feels like they belong and can contribute, it just makes things better for everyone.
So it's a win-win, really.
It is.
But it sounds like it's not just about changing policies and procedures.
No.
It's also about, like, changing the culture, right?
It is. It's about looking at those deep-seated thought patterns.
The ones we might not even know we have.
Exactly. The ones that shape how we see the world.
So where do we go from here? Like, what are some actual things people can do?
Well, education is really important.
Okay.
Learning about the history of colonialism,
Yeah.
how it's still affecting us, all of that.
And not just the big historical events, but how it shows up in everyday life, too.
Right, and it's not just about reading about it, it's about talking to people.
Okay.
Hearing their stories, the people who have been marginalized.
So being open to other people's experiences?
Yes, and questioning our own assumptions.
It sounds like it's this constant process of learning.
It is. It's a journey, not a destination.
And it takes courage to be open to being wrong,
It does.
to be willing to change your mind.
Exactly.
But where do we find the resources, the support to do all this?
There are some great organizations out there.
Okay.
Like George Simon's International.
Right.
They do workshops, training programs, even consulting.
To help with this whole decolonization process.
Exactly.
And what about that diversity card game? Could that help?
Absolutely. Games like that are a great way to start conversations.
In a fun way.
Yeah, they help build empathy, challenge perspectives, all that.
And make it less intimidating to talk about these big issues.
Right. Exactly.
So it sounds like it's about individual change,
Yes,
but also about working together to change systems.
it is. We're all part of this, and we can all make a difference.
It's been a really, really eye-opening conversation.
It has.
I feel like I'm seeing things in a whole new way.
Me too. I think the biggest takeaway is that decolonization isn't just about tearing down bad systems.
Yeah.
It's about creating something better,
Something new.
something that embraces all of humanity.
I love that. And I think we have just enough time to wrap up our deep dive.
Sounds good.
Let's do that after a quick break. Don't go away. We're back. And man, this whole decolonization thing, it's really been a journey. It's challenged me. It's opened my eyes. It's been pretty inspiring, honestly.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride, hasn't it? We started way back with the history of colonialism. Then we saw how it's still around today, even in subtle ways.
And we even talked about some real steps we can take to start changing things for the better.
Exactly, dismantling those old colonial ways of thinking and building something more just and fair.
And the thing that really sticks with me is this. It's not enough to just change, like, rules and systems. It's got to be deeper than that.
It's about really changing the way we see the world, right?
Yeah, like a total shift in mindset.
Yeah.
Being willing to question, everything we thought we knew, and really being open to new ways of seeing things.
You're absolutely right. It's about stepping outside of our comfort zones, challenging those biases we all have.
And being open to learning from people who have different experiences.
It's a journey, not a destination, right?
It really is a constant process of unlearning and relearning.
Exactly. And it requires us to be humble, to be curious,
Yeah,
and to really respect all the different ways people experience the world.
that's beautifully said. So as we wrap up here, what can we do to keep this conversation going? What are some things people can do to keep moving forward with decolonization?
Well, first off, we've got to keep learning, keep reflecting on ourselves.
So read books, listen to podcasts, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Go to workshops, talk to people who are different from you, expose yourself to different ideas.
So it's about challenging ourselves.
Yeah, being willing to have tough conversations, to really listen with an open mind and an open heart, and to change our minds when we need to.
That's so important, being able to say, you know what, I was wrong. Being willing to admit you don't know everything.
It's key. And beyond learning, we can also advocate for change.
In our workplaces, our communities, even our governments.
Exactly. Support those organizations that are fighting for justice and equality. Use your voice. Take action.
So it's about personal growth and collective action.
You got it. We're all connected, and every little thing we do makes a difference.
Speaking of action, I got to bring up George Simon's again. He's been such a huge inspiration for this whole deep dive.
He really has.
And I'm so excited for his new book, Diversity,
Me too. It's such a cool project.
and that card game that goes with it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's a fun way to approach decolonization.
I love it. Using storytelling to spark conversation and challenge our thinking, it makes these complex ideas so much more accessible.
And for anyone who wants to learn more about George Simon's and Diversity, we'll have links in the show notes.
Perfect. Well, this has been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. I've learned so much today.
It's been my pleasure.
Hmm?
And I want to leave everyone with this. Decolonization isn't just about tearing down bad things. It's about reclaiming our humanity.
Wow.
It's about recognizing that everyone has value and creating a world where everyone can thrive.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll let you continue your own journey into decolonization.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.